How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the this is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the this is the final
What up, guys? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? I'll tell you how I'm doing. I'm getting a cold. I am definitely getting a cold. I don't know how this has happened. I barely even leave my house, but I woke up this morning and my nose was running and I was sniffling and I've been sneezing all day and my eyes feel weird and I've got some sort of head cold thing. And if any of you gave me this cold, you can just, keep it to yourself next time. Keep it to yourself. I don't need a cold. This is not convenient. And I'm really upset about it. But that's not all I'm upset about because, you may have gotten wind of this if you follow me on Twitter. But I spent a little time this morning with the help of several members of the community. Some of them are in the chat. Shout out Kino, shout out Reagan, shout out Bot, Milo, all the people who were in on this little research enterprise this morning. Special shout out to Stony Baloney for bringing this to who was the one who initially suggested we do this. We spent a little time rummaging around in the USAID funding because, all these stories have been coming out, and we watched the hearing yesterday about government overreach, basically saying, what, we are basically lighting our money on fire and sending it to overseas to advance American leftist propaganda in all sorts of weird ways. Literally billions of dollars have been wasted doing this. And, you can look up this stuff and you can kind of look and see what's funded. So we started just poking around in this little rabbit hole today. And, we found out some stuff. One of the things that we found out is that literally one of the organizations that we have been following, the People's Forum, the organization that has really been at the forefront of organizing the mass protests that we're seeing around deportation and things like that. People's Forum was also organizing the pro-Palestine protests. They work with the Party of Socialism and Liberation. We have covered them multiple times on this channel. Well, guess what? It turns out that the People's Forum is getting USAID funding. And it's a little bit confusing because, basically what the USAID funding is it's like this huge, giant-ass matrix that is it's basically money. It's money laundering. Let's just call it what it is. It's money laundering. Money goes to the government. The government then distributes the money to all of these organizations and NGOs and things like that. And then the NGOs and the organizations, and in many cases, Columbia University, ironically enough, have then they funnel it to more organizations, and those organizations funnel it to more organizations, and eventually it lands in the pocket of some leftist organizations. So it's like this whole fucking complicated web, and you can look all this stuff up on this website. You don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up on the website. And so I'll show you. It automatically defaults to William Crystal, which I think is kind of funny. But this is all like publicly available information. People's Forum. And it takes a second. Oh, People's Forum. Okay, now we can see the USAID grant flow. And it comes up with a whole spider web of things. And then we have to zoom in because it's really small. And we can see at the end, we have People's Forum with $3.5 million. That came from the Justice and Education Fund. The Justice and Education Fund is a social justice organization that is funding all sorts of far left bullshit. They get to the tune of like $18.7 million. That came through another fund, which came through all of these other funds from Fidelity and Schwab. And now we're getting back into like the meat of it, because now we're getting back into the originators of this funding. World Vision, Rockefeller, Community Foundation of Texas. Isn't that interesting? The Board of Trustees of Leland. Oh, look, Columbia University. Hello, Columbia. Columbia University, we looked up a whole bunch of organizations today, and Columbia University is almost always mentioned. So it couldn't possibly be because this was the home of the Frankfurt School. This is basically ground zero for socialism in the United States. A Columbia University graduate is always and perpetually involved in everything. I promise you. Like, we are never surprised when we see Columbia University show up, and there they are. There they are. Let's see. National Endowment for Democracy, New America Foundation, World Resource Institute, Global Communities, National Democratic Institute. I don't even know what many of these places are. I'm sure you don't know what many of these places are either. But you start, what was the first one? The Consortium for Elections. Okay, I don't know what that is. But basically, it goes through this massive amount of other organizations, and they launder the money, and then it ends up in places like People's Forum, where it funds far-left protests. Fun times. Fun times. There's lots of useful information in this. So for instance, did you guys know that the Democratic Socialists of America were getting USAID money? Did you know that Code Pink was getting USAID money, $1.2 million. Did you know? Oh, check this out. This organization, 0 to 3, I'd never heard of it before. Advancing Racial Equity, Diversity, Inclusion in Early Childhood. Well, that's important. We definitely need to teach 1 to 3-year-olds that they're racist. We definitely need to do it to the tune of $90 million. Queer Humboldt, like all sorts of random queer shit is funded. All these rethinking schools. Do you guys remember Jesse Hagopian? Jesse Hagopian, who is basically running around saying, we're going to do fugitive pedagogy to teach all these concepts in school that Trump is banning. Rethinking Schools is one of the organizations that Jesse Hagopian works with. Oh, look at this. $888,000. Oh, my word. Teaching for Change is another connected organization to that. $1.5 million for them. Haymarket People's Funding. Now, this is not the same as Haymarket Books. Haymarket Books is actually not in it. But I did look them up, and so I didn't find Haymarket Books, but I did find Haymarket's People's Fund, which seems to be an anti-racist organization, which seems to me to be far-left organizing. Oh, check this shit out. Now, listen. Someone needs to look into this. If someone doesn't look into this, someone's not doing their job. The National Network for Abortion Funds received $55 million. And their whole thing is to pay for people's abortions, and they are not the only abortion company in that database. There are several abortion companies in that database. We paid almost $1 million for queer art. That's great. Oh, Queer Asterisk is great. Queer Asterisk is queer therapy. $1.5 million. Great. Queer Works is about providing mental health care to trans and queer individuals for creating joy through health equity. Oh, wow, look at that, $700,000. Yep, Black and Pink is a prison abolition organization, $1.8 million. They want to eliminate all prisons. Let's see. There's actually one in here that I'm a little disappointed with myself. I didn't put in for some reason, but we'll look it up live. Liberation in a Generation, $1.1 million. Another abortion fund, Abortion Liberation Fund of Pennsylvania, $1.6 million. We funded social justice organizing in Chicago, so I'm gonna bet you this is connected to Obama. There was lots of social justice organizations in Chicago that were being funded. The Transforming Power Fund is a leftist activist organization that funds all these things. And I'm shocked I didn't put it in here. This must have just been an oversight on my part when I was doing this. But check this out. Who remembers GLSEN? Does anyone remember GLSEN? Does anyone remember what GLSEN is? GLSEN? Sometimes this takes a minute to load, so we're just going to give it a sec. What does GLSEN do, guys? What does GLSEN do? I can't believe I didn't put that in that article. I'm going to have to go back and update it. If the website will allow me to load. Okay, does anyone want to explain what GLSEN does? Does anyone want to explain it? Or are we just saying, oh yeah, we remember it, but we don't know anything about it? Which would make me very upset. Okay, why isn't this letting me click in? Why aren't you letting me type? There's no reason you shouldn't be letting me type. I'm just clicking. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see. GLSEN. Now, some of you may remember GLSEN from the kerfuffle with Target over Pride Month. Remember, GLSEN sponsored Pride Month with Target. But what a lot of people don't realize about GLSEN is GLSEN funds clubs in schools where they teach your kids how to be queer activists and they trans them. Oh, look, GLSEN! Oh, GLSEN's in there. Let's look. Let's look. Look at this. Nice little network leading up to GLSEN, which got $7.6 million. So, it seems as though we have been paying for a lot of bullshit. It seems as though, look, University of Pittsburgh, George Washington University, oh, Columbia. There it is again. There it is again. There it is again. So the moral of the story, guys, is we've been paying for a lot of bullshit. And I'm not happy about it. And I don't know why someone's calling me right now. That's really inconsiderate. And I don't want to pay taxes anymore. And I'm really upset. And, you know, listen, I don't think that anyone is surprised. I said this on the stream yesterday. I don't think anyone is surprised that the government is corrupt. I don't think that anyone is surprised that our money is being lit on fire with a blowtorch. I don't think this is I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed that the organizations that are legitimately trying to overthrow the federal government. People's Forum is a far left organization. It is a revolutionary socialist organization. It has been organizing public nonsense and disturbances and destabilization for years. I'm a little perturbed at the fact that our money is being laundered through a series of organizations to get to these people at the absolute scale that it is, and no one ever thought to say what's going on. And they all knew about this. I had no idea about any of this. I had no idea what USAID is. I had no idea. I mean, maybe I had heard of it once or twice, but I hadn't really thought about it because it wasn't on my radar every day. But do you know who damn well should have known about this? Republicans. Republicans in Congress should have known about this. In fact, I'm going to bet you that Republicans in Congress did know about this. I'm going to even go so far as to say that I'm going to bet that Republicans in Congress knew about this in Trump's first term when they literally controlled everything. What is the, you know what, listen, you have to, you can't, I'm not suggesting we don't blame the Democrats at all. Of course the Democrats knew about it too, and the Democrats didn't do anything too. However, I hold Republicans to just a smidgen of a higher standard, because they themselves present as the ones that are morally superior, the ones that are morally righteous, the ones that care about stopping communism. Guys, we're going to stop communism. We're going to stop the Marxists. And they all stood back and said nothing as our money was funneled to far left groups trying to overthrow the government. And obviously I'm upset about all that billions of dollars being wasted on the foreign shit too. This is why we need to end all foreign aid, everything. All of it. But you know what? For the amount of whining and complaining and TV time that these fucking politicians talk about, we're going to stop the left, the communists. We got to stop the communists, bro. They allowed this to happen. I really can't emphasize this enough. I know I don't have the biggest platform in the world, and that's fine. But if people allow the Republican politicians, all of them, I don't give a fuck. If they allow the Republican politicians who were in Congress to get away with it, completely unaccountable for their absolute lack of leadership, their abject failure to notify the public what was going on. I just don't even know what to say. I am so sick of hearing from conservatives, well, who are you going to vote for? A Democrat? You know what? Guess what? I told conservatives that was a shitty attitude to have. I said this for years. Every time I said, that's a horrible politician, why are you voting for that person? Well, who would you rather vote for? A Democrat? We can fix things after they're elected. Everything. Don't fight now. Don't question us now. We'll fix things afterwards. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. No, you fucking can't. No. Republicans never hold their own accountable. They never fix things after the election, after they browbeat you into voting for their fucking candidate that you didn't want to vote for in the first place, because they say, if you don't vote for them, you're literally a Democrat. Do you support communism? We'll fix things after the election. And then they do nothing. They do nothing. And that is why this problem exists. It exists because feckless fucking Republicans never did anything to stop it. What about the Democrats? Do you blame the Democrats? Are you a communist? Go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves. I am so sick and tired of all the goddamn excuses that come out of the conservative fucking pundit sphere and all these. I mean, I'm sorry. If you continue to buy into the fact that the Republican Party is not responsible for this, then you are a sheep. You are not a fucking smart person, and you shouldn't be responsible for any decision-making abilities at all. And if I had my way, I would take away your right to vote. That's how I feel about it. If you are not going to hold your own people accountable for doing better, don't ever expect me to vote for them ever again. I feel now completely justified in not voting for fucking Trump in November. And it's not because I don't like some of the things that Trump is doing, because I do like some of the things that Trump is doing. But the fact of the matter is, Trump was president when this shit was going on the first time. He had a Republican House. He had a Republican Senate. They all fucking knew They all knew this was a problem, and none of them said anything, and none of them did anything, and they just were, well, we need to get our tax cuts, guys. We need our tax cuts, and yeah, I want my fucking tax cuts too. In fact, Trump needs to issue a moratorium on taxes. I'm sorry. We should not be sending one more fucking dime to the federal government until we get some real goddamn accountability for how hundreds of billions of dollars of our money has been spent by these absolute feckless fucking retards that never apologize, that never fix things, that never make things better. It took Elon Musk coming in with a team of fucking IT people to figure this stuff out. I am so sick of pretending that the Republican Party are the good guys and that they're going to beat communism when they were funding them the whole fucking time. But George Soros. This is why the left will win. This is why. Because the right does not demand accountability from the people that they put in positions of responsibility, and then they abdicate all kind. Well, how are we supposed to know? Your politicians were supposed to know. The people you voted for were supposed to know. If this does not infuriate every American on some level, the fraud that has been perpetrated on all of us, I don't know what to say. So you can go do your own research. You can look in that database. You can find out what organizations they're funding. You can find out where our money's going, and, maybe keep a bottle of whiskey right by your side as you're doing it, because you may have the urge to take a shot or two as you're going through this information, which is exactly how I felt all morning as I was doing it. And it is what it is, I guess. It is what it is. And now we sit back and we wait for something to be done. Thomas Massie has just introduced a bill to abolish the USAID. So hopefully that happens. Just abolish it entirely, because there ain't no saving this. But I want more than that. I want some sort of indication that, first of all, I am under no illusion, and I don't think anyone else should be under any illusion. This is not the only federal government office that is doing this shit. Everyone understands that, right? This is not the only office that's doing this. Probably every single department in the federal government is doing shit just like this. So if they abolish USAID and then go, okay, guys, we did it. We fixed everything. There's no more corruption in the federal government. Pinky swear, trust us, bro. Just because we didn't tell you the first time it was happening doesn't mean we're lying this time. Pinky swear, trust us. If they don't continue, if Elon Musk and Doge doesn't continue on this, or however they want to do it, I don't really care, then everyone should be screaming at all times that we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore, and you can kiss our asses if you think you're getting another fucking cent from us until you fix this fucking problem. So if you want to read that, you can head over to my Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. You can look at the numbers for yourself. You can look in the database for yourself. And, let me know what you think. Leave a comment on the post. Let me know what you think. And if you feel like funding the work I'm doing, because my work, my time is 100% funded by you, make sure you sign up for a membership, $8 a month, $80 a year. Unlike basically everyone, it turns out, I was just telling Victor this earlier, unlike everyone else, apparently, it turns out, I'm like the only person that never took government money. Maybe that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but it is true that I have never taken government money. And not only have I never taken government money, I don't even take money from political organizations. The only people who fund my work are people like you, real live human beings that understand that this is important, that want to see this work done, that don't trust anyone else to do it because everyone is a liar and everyone has a political agenda. And I basically am the only person on the internet doing this that legitimately hates everyone. I hate everyone. I hate everyone on both sides. I am on no one's team. My only job is to show you the receipts and tell you the truth, and then you can look at the information because you have the receipts, and you can decide for yourself what you think. And in order to do that, I need to be funded by individuals, real people who understand this. So if you appreciate the work I'm doing, please head over to the Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up for a membership. I would really appreciate it. $8 a month, $80 a year. Keeps me in business. And I appreciate you guys allowing me to do this. And another way you can fund my work is by heading over to redmenacecollective.substack.com. This is a separate Substack. This is where I am publishing my draft chapters of the books that I'm working on, of which I'm working on multiple right now. We are so close to being done. This brief history of racism book, I have now published all my major chapters. You can read them all on the Substack. I'm making edits. I'm doing a little bit more of a narrative writing with the second round of editing. So this was going to turn into a book very, very soon. This is separate from my main Substack, but if you sign up for a membership over here, you will get a free digital copy of the book and all books that I write through this Substack when it is completed. This is $10 a month, $100 a year. And then you can always head over to the Unwoke Art store where you can buy my merch. And we do have a special limited edition design right now because I don't think it's enough to abolish the Department of Education. I want to abolish public schooling entirely. And if this little episode into wasteful government spending has taught you anything, then you should know that the public schools are exactly as corrupt as you think they are. They're not even teaching your kids how to read. I saw a video last night from a 26-year-old working for a major corporation. She literally filmed a video in her office saying, guys, I'm 26 years old. I have a bachelor's degree. I have a corporate job. I don't know how to read. I don't know how to spell. I'm sitting here at my desk listening to podcasts, learning how to sound out words because I was never taught how to spell. Those are our public schools, ladies and gentlemen. They are literally graduating millions and millions of kids every single year that do not know how to read, do not know how to write, do not know how to do math, but they know how to be queer activists. And they know how to be queer activists because the government funded queer activism to the tune of $7 million fucking dollars in the public schools. So, if you would like to express your desire to abolish the public schools, just like I would, head over to the merch store, pick up this limited edition shirt. It will only be in the merch store in the month of February. That is what a limited edition is. It is a limited edition. So you got to get it while you can. And this week only, up until Sunday, it is 25% off. You don't have to have a discount code or anything. Just put it in your cart. You will get it for 25% off. Those are the merch that it's available on. If you click into the t-shirts, there are different colors, including red, if it wants to wear gold, navy, purple, and even a white one. And all purchases in the store do go to support my work, just like everything else. We got all sorts of other designs in the store that you can take a look at and browse and peruse. I don't like to pat myself on the back. Okay, maybe I do sometimes, but I really do think I have the best anti-communist merch on the internet. So check it out. Check it out. Now today for our main show, let's go back. And I'm glad my friend Dan Kleinman is here because this episode wouldn't be happening without Dan Kleinman. And I very much appreciate Dan. Dan is the librarian that is fighting the American Library Association. He's doing great work. I met Dan in 2023. And one of the first big things that I think, kind of cemented Dan and mine's relationship is that in 2023, for those of you who don't know, or maybe you weren't around, I went undercover at the Socialism conference in Chicago. I spent 3 days, 8 hours a day in the room with the farthest left activists that you could imagine. I secretly recorded them and I showed people what was going on at the Socialism conference. And it was in the very first session that I actually recorded. So I wasn't even sure. This is a true story. I wasn't even sure my recording device was working when I was in this session because it was the very first session that I did. And in this session, it was a session about, it was actually a session from Rethinking Schools, which is funded by the government. Now we know that. And Emily Drabinski was not even presenting in the session. Emily Drabinski then was the president of the American Library Association. She no longer is. There is a new president, but she is, I think, the most recent past president of the American Library Association. And Emily Drabinski is a socialist. And she was actually supposed to present at the Socialism conference, but then she got all sorts of backlash and flack for being a socialist as the president of the American Library Association. So they canceled her presentation, but she still went to the conference. And I was in this session about fugitive pedagogy in schools, basically how the far left is teaching banned concepts in public schools. Emily Drabinski happened to be in the same session. And in that session, Emily Drabinski came up to the microphone, because that's how socialist events work. At the end, there's a microphone. You stand in line. You can say whatever you want at the microphone. I happened to be sitting right next to the microphone when she did this. And just in case you guys missed this when this originally came out, let me play you the recording that I got of Emily Drabinski at the Socialism 2023 conference.
So this camera will be followed by the camera in the green, followed by the camera here.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm a librarian. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for bringing up libraries and classroom libraries, but also school libraries of all kinds, public libraries and higher education libraries who've been under attack in similar ways. But I think your point that public education needs to be a site of socialist organizing, I think libraries really do too. And that hasn't, I haven't seen that for the people that are working in libraries, but I think there's a real opportunity here to both connect what's happening in public education, what's happening in libraries, but also we need some help in the libraries, and we need to be on the agenda of socialist organizing. So I just want to get up and say that. So thank you.
I just want to thank you for your work and career. Stick your neck out and then fight at a difficult time. It's an inspiration to me.
So that was Emily Drabinski, secretly recorded by me at the Socialism 2023 conference, saying libraries need to be sites of socialist organizing. Well, this kind of went viral. A lot of people covered this. I got to go on the news and all that stuff. And you know, I was actually pretty thankful for the coverage because I wasn't actually sure people would. But that's a pretty crazy clip, right? To actually get, and again, when this clip happened, she was the president of the American Library Association saying, yeah, libraries need to be sites of Marxist organizing. We need to be on the agenda of socialist organizing. So that, I think, was one of the most clear clips that we've ever gotten of someone really saying the quiet part out loud. Well. You guys might remember last September when we actually streamed the live stream from the Socialism 2024 conference. Now, obviously, I'm now in a position that I've outed myself as going under. They knew I was going. They tried to prevent me from going to the conference in 2023. They basically tried to kick me out. I ended up going anyway. I wore a disguise and all that stuff. But I kind of thought last year, I was like, I probably can't go undercover at the conference again because they're actually going to be looking for me this time. And so I stayed home. I did not go to Chicago. And we actually just watched the Socialism Conference live stream for like 3 straight days where we listened to a bunch of sessions from the Socialism Conference. But we did not listen to all sessions from the Socialism Conference because they were not all live streamed. However, the Socialism Conference, and I have to again thank Dan Kleinman for bringing this to my attention because I didn't realize this. The Socialism Conference has a SoundCloud account where about a month ago, they literally uploaded the audio of, I think, every single session from the conference. So they did actually record just audio. We don't have video, but we have audio. Oh, Christian Zionism, isn't that funny? They recorded audio, I think, of every single session from the conference. And one of the sessions they recorded is Save the Library, Save the World. Emily Drabinski and Miriam Kaba speak in a session recorded at the Socialism 2024. This session was sponsored by Social Justice Initiative. I wonder if Social Justice Initiative is in this crazy fucking tracking thing. Let's just see real quick. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be funny if that came up? Oh no. Oh no. Show us the result. Come on. It's going slow. Whoa, we're waiting for that. Sarah Jessica Parker has produced a new film called The Librarians, pure propaganda. One school librarian featured is suing me twice for defamation while she's in the middle of suing other parents. I'm sorry to hear that, Dan. That kind of sucks. That sucks. But yeah, that is actually propaganda. Why isn't I don't know why that's not loading, but let's wait, hang on, did it load? Nope. Looks like Social Justice Initiative is not in there. That's okay. The public library is an example of a world we want. Everything from books and media to cake pans and garden tools are held in common and shared equitably, expanding the public good and access to it. This is precisely why libraries are under attack and why we must organize to win. And then they say the Socialism 2025 conference is coming up on 4th of July weekend. These assholes literally scheduled the Socialism conference on 4th of July weekend. Think about that. But this is from the Socialism 2024 conference, and I want to listen to it. And I know it's just audio, but we're all going to have to manage, okay? Because I want to hear what Emily said. Because Dan listened to this session yesterday, and Dan may have popped into my DMs and said, Carlin, you know, Emily talked about when you recorded her last year. And I was like, oh, did she? Did she? And then Dan said, yes. And they talked about capitalism a lot. And I was like, oh, really? There's, you know, Dan, you have my attention. You have my attention. And so, guys, we are going to be listening to this, and we are going to be finding out for ourselves what happened. And that is what we're going to do. And I apologize it's not video, but it is what it is. All right? So let's jump into it. We are listening to Save the Library, Save the World from the Socialism 2024 conference. Let's get this party started. Oh, you can't hear it? You guys can't hear it? Thank you for letting me know you couldn't hear it. Sorry about that. You didn't miss anything. You literally didn't miss anything. All they did was the intro. So I apologize. You should be able to hear it now. Okay.
I hope you've met as many cool humans as I have, and that you've made some connections with people doing work both where you're at and in maybe other places, and that you've learned some amazing new things. I know this session will be similar. We will all be in community together. We'll all learn together. It's great sharing a space with you. Welcome to Save the Library, Save the World. We have a couple of amazing speakers. Before I introduce them, I am going to first introduce myself. Sorry. I am Dana. I am chairing this session. I'm also one of the Socialism Conference organizers, and I work for Haymarket Books. So if you have Any questions or feedback about the conference, please let me know. It's been really great hearing from everybody, and we were just talking about collective feedback and learning how to make this a space that everybody loves to come to every year. So thank you for being here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers and get us started. First, Emily Drabinski is an associate professor at the Queens College CUNY Graduate School of Library and Information Studies. Give it up for Emily. And Miriam Kaba is an organizer, educator, librarian, and we're very excited that you're a librarian. Yes, and prison industrial complex abolitionist, amazing Haymarket author who is with us tonight as well. So give it up for Miriam. All right, and I will turn it over to Emily.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? Okay, great. Okay. Thank you so much for coming out to this session. It's just an absolute honor and pleasure to be up here with these folks and to be here at Socialism for my second time. I was here last year as the current president of the American Library Association, where I got up to the mic and asked a question at a panel about libraries. And I made a comment. I said that libraries need to be on the organizing agenda of the socialist movement. I believe that then, and I believe it now, and I think there's a lot that we can win here. So I spent last year as the out and open president.
I believed it then, and I believe it now. Oh, tell us more, Emily. Tell us more about how libraries should be on the agenda of socialist organizing.
Socialist president of the American Library Association, dealing with the ramifications of being those things in this contemporary political moment. I don't want to make it all about me, but it's been interesting to see the ways that what I think we would all agree on, which is the library is a good place, right? How many of you think libraries are? How many library workers are here? Okay, solid. Okay. Really great to see you. I see somebody's here from the Daniel Boone Regional Library in Missouri, home of the first unionized library in the state of Missouri. So I'm really glad.
So remember, this is literally at the Socialism conference. So when Emily is saying, how many librarians do we have in the house? And everyone's raising their hands and everyone's clapping. They're all socialist. Okay? All of them. Without exception. There is no one except crazy people like me that goes to the Socialism conference that is not a socialist.
So in my role as ALA president, I was sort of the Miss Librarian for a year and had a travel budget that enabled me to go across the country visiting libraries and library workers and seeing what was happening on the ground in libraries, from a tiny, tiny library in Man, West Virginia, population 600, where the library is the primary site for historical memory of the Buffalo Creek flood, which was a result of unregulated mining that destroyed the town, and the library is the only space that keeps those records and keeps those memories alive and keeps those stories alive for us. To the Brooklyn Public Library branch in the Macon branch, if there are Brooklyn Public Library people here, which has, alongside a number of different justice initiatives, they host a welcome home dinner for people in returning from incarceration. They come and have dinner at the library with people who have been out for a lot longer, and just share information and trade information about what's happening in the space. And talked to a person who'd been inside for 13 years, and when he came out, he said the only thing that was the same in his neighborhood in Brooklyn, the rapidly gentrifying neighborhood in Brooklyn, was the library that had been there for 100 years. We met to Rossville, Kansas, a tiny town, bigger than Man, but about 1,200 people, in a city in Kansas that is 25 minutes away from Topeka, but might as well have been 2,500 miles away from Topeka, where the 80% of the people in this town live below the poverty line. There is no industry to speak of anymore. In Rossville, the primary driver of the local economy is a Catholic cult that people come and pay their respects, right? So a place
What?
with not a lot going on, and the librarian there
The primary driver of the economy is a Catholic cult. Does anyone know about that?
told us, and this is a
That's
librarian who
weird.
is not a socialist, not a Marxist lesbian, right? That's most of the people I met were not Marxist lesbians. Although if that's you, let's hang out later. She and I don't agree probably about anything, but what she said about her library, she said that she keeps stuffed animals in the children's room because she's just like stuffed animals and the kids like stuffed animals. And sometimes she'll get a kid who comes and brings their stuffed animal to the library and says, Christy, can my stuffed animal spend the night here tonight? If my animal can spend the night here, I know she'll be safe. Right? And just gutting stories at every turn, and hundreds of them. And what I learned from from those travels, and we kept a blog, so check it out at roadtoannual.com. But what I learned was that the library, which I knew was a space of exactly what we want, right? Which is a world where resources held in common are distributed equitably to everyone in the community. Everyone has a stake in it. It's open to all. And this is, of course, like the ideal vision of the library. You know, we went past the Chicago Public Library branch here in Chinatown, where you can't come in if you have a hygiene problem, right? So this is like the library as it could and should be, and we need to be organizing to make it so. But everywhere I went, the library was amazing. And I got distracted.
No, it's okay.
My menopause brain. We're talking about
We're both
flashing up
there.
here.
We're both
Yeah,
there.
we're both
Yeah.
there. So it's interesting because, you know, I spent a year in the sort of spectacular space of being a Marxist lesbian under attack for all of those reasons. And that included everything from the State Library of Montana ending its membership in the American Library Association because it's unconstitutional due to the Marxist president of the association. There were bills in 3 different states that would have defunded or would have prevented any state monies being spent on anything related to the American Library Association because it's a Marxist lesbian organization. And if it was a Marxist lesbian organization, we would be in a better place
We
right
really
now.
would be in a better place. Really.
It's not.
I mean, to be really clear, those bills aren't about it being lesbian. The bills are about it being a Marxist organization with a clear Marxist agenda that elected a president that said libraries should be sites of socialist and Marxist organizing, Emily. It has nothing to do with you, who you fuck. It has to do with the fact that you're a Marxist.
But we have in libraries, I think, a space and an institution that takes up room, takes up public space, gives access to public goods to everyone in the community, everything from you can go to the bathroom, to you can check out a book, to you can check out objects. I became really interested in the decommodification work happening in American libraries, which if you're a library worker, you're like, yes, the Library of Things, I had to learn about it in my class, you know, and it's like, but what if we thought, those of you who are librarians in the room, that it's not a Library of Things, but instead a collective state-sponsored decommodification project. So that's like
a collective state-sponsored decommodification project, because what they want to do, and this is not necessarily a bad idea, right? It's not necessarily a bad idea to have stuff available in the library for people to use. I don't actually disagree with that, but the framing of it is like a decommodification thing. That's where I'm starting to be like, okay, that's not so good, because that means they want to abolish capitalism.
the library is, right? And I think it's really amazing and really cool. And as much as we have heard nonstop about efforts.
And just to be clear, this is going to be one of those things where, like, this is like one of those times where socialists have like a nugget of a good idea where they're like, stuff should be available in the library. And it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I can kind of get behind stuff being available in the library instead of like people having to go out and buying another thing. You just borrow it from the library. Okay, fine. But you need to really pay attention to why they're saying it. It's not that stuff being available in the library is a bad idea, but they're saying it to push a decommodification agenda, which is not going to stop at the library.
Ban books in libraries, and all of those problems are real and serious and severe and need to be addressed. I traveled all over the country in places where I would not be welcome. Do not let those stories feel true. I don't think that they're true, right? I had over that entire year where I had a liberal organization freaking out about what might happen if I was there. And I'm a really nice guy and not dangerous in the ways that they imagined. But I had protesters at one event, one. The Kentucky Library Association in Florence, Kentucky, held in a Hilton hotel about 20 minutes from the Cincinnati airport. There were two protesters. They had one sign. Two protesters, one sign, and they were quickly removed by hotel security to continue their protest across the parking lot at a local Cracker Barrel. It was like out of central casting, right?
Wow.
Instead, what I heard, place after place I went, was, we have never had anyone come here and see what it is that we do and value it in the way that you are valuing it, right? And so that is sort of the organizing project that I did over the last year at the American Library Association. And really, like, so I come at this from 23 years as a librarian, practicing librarian, mostly in academic libraries, very identified as a library worker, very identified as a library worker unionist. And what I learned over this year is that this is an institution we can win. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. I've been here and I say to
This is an institution that we, the socialists, can win.
people I'm a librarian, and they're like, oh, I love librarians. As a library worker, very identified as a library worker unionist. And what I learned over this year is that this is an institution we can win. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. I've been here and I say to people I'm a librarian, and they're like, oh, I love librarians. And I'm always like, have you met very many of them? Right? Because there are some unlovable versions of it. But I think as people who work every day in a world where the decades of disinvestment in public institutions have left only the library in a lot of places as the institution that can keep life happening, especially true in rural communities, I think, although also true in urban communities, that institution, which is the world that we want, is infinitely winnable. And I think I believe more than I did when I said it, and I believed it then, that this has to be a site of intense socialist organizing, not because of the nostalgia, but because if we expand the library, if it takes up more space in our places, we're going to have more of the world we want that we can sort of live in and occupy every day. So that's my little intro, and I'll pass it.
Thank you. Thank you to Emily. Thanks to all of you for being here. I was saying the other day, or not the other day, more like about 5 minutes ago, that I would really like to be at Hanif's talk about June Jordan, but then I found out that it's actually going to be videoed. I mean, so I'll be seeing it anyway. So anyway, yeah. So I'm not that sad anymore, but I was, and we were both sad. But anyway, so I'm so glad that you're all here. I'm so glad to be on this panel with Emily, who I admire greatly for lots of reasons that involve the library and others that do not involve the library at all. And I'm excited to be talking about libraries because they're my favorite things to talk about, which a lot of people don't know because they hear me talking a lot about how much I hate certain things. But I really love libraries, but not in a romantic way, in a material way. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. It was mentioned that I am a librarian, but I came to being part of libraries through having been a library worker in college, as somebody who worked at my academic library, like on a work-study kind of situation, And then my first job out of college, I worked at County Cullen Library in Harlem, which is adjacent to the Schomburg Library, and I was an information specialist over there. And it was from that library that I got recruited in a kind of Teach for America situation to go and teach high school. So I always had a real kind of passion and an interest in the library. I had an interest in it as a child of returned migrants. My mother came here not knowing how to speak the language, and where she got to learn how to speak English was through the library ESL program. So she would be doing her ESL and I would be in story time. So I felt very much like connected to my local library and to my local librarians and library workers, because frankly, we were latchkey kids. Our parents worked a million different hours, and right after school we would go to the library. And who was there but the librarians and library workers holding us down till our parents could come home to take us back home in the evening. So I always had this connection to libraries and kind of that kind of a romantic idea of libraries. As I got older, that shifted and changed, but my delight in them has not over time. And a few years ago, I decided to go to library school because I'd always wanted to do it. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to fucking library school because I can do it online. Hello, this is going to be so great. Anyway, long story short, I was really wanting to do that because of my interest in archives and archiving, and because I've always been kind of an amateur archivist myself, and I was like, what? I don't know what I don't know, so I'm going to go to school and try to get more information about that. But over the past few years, I've been getting really, really tired of particularly seeing the conversations around people getting super exorcised about book bans.
Oh.
Book bans, and more book bans, and people getting super like, this is the big thing. And I did what I always do, which is I ran my mouth online, much to my despair at certain periods of time, because the problem with being online is you forget you're fucking online. So it's like, I'm like listening to something and I'm like, oh my God, why did I do that? There's like 10,000 people now thinking I'm saying whatever. But I did say, like, book bans are actually just a symptom of the larger project that the right has been engaged in for at least 60 years in the United States at the least. And that what we have to do, I think, for those of us who are on the left, is that we have to contend with power and we have to take the lead in governance. And that meant, for example, how many people in the room know that a lot of libraries are governed by library boards? A few people, yeah. But a lot of people have no idea that their libraries are governed by library boards, right? In these kinds of ways. And so I was just like, it would be easier for us if we could get some friggin' leftists on these boards who could stop some of these things from ever coming into being, where we're kind of like fingers in the dike while the water is coming.
Do you mean to tell me that conservatives are not the only people who can organize to get people elected to positions on boards where they can make decisions? Do you mean to tell me that the socialists have thought about doing that too? I am shocked at this revelation.
But people who are in governance who care about the institution, but also connect it to broader things that we need in society at large. We can also get a bunch of leftists who have a common idea of like understanding of carcerality and choose to fight that instead of letting that kind of infuse into the institution of the library, because the library is an institution like every other institution under capitalism and under a carceral state, so therefore carcerality appears there, right? And you have to kind of fight through that in various kinds of ways. So wouldn't it be great if we had more leftists in governance so that we wouldn't be fighting on all these fronts in kind of like a disorganized way? So because I said that, a couple of people reached out to me. And they were like, we're down. We want to do something around that. And I was like, wah. I don't have time and I don't want to do shit, right? Like, I don't want to do anything, meow. This is not the deal. So I kind of like, you know, I dragged my feet a little bit. And then one of the people emailed me like at the end of 2022. And he was like, listen, I'm a library worker and I'm also really good at data. And I was like, oh, yes. You are my person, because I had no idea whatsoever how many library boards there were in the US. Like, how many library boards are there? What do these people do? How do you get on it? Like, questions that were basic questions that I had. And frankly, ALA could not give us the information, right? They didn't have it. And I was like, how? Anyway, so I had lots of questions about how, these groups don't have that kind of, for me, which is basic information about governing and how shit works, right? So I was like, okay, we're gonna start to try to collect data to find the answer to how many boards exist. Are they mostly elected boards? Are they mostly boards that people get appointed to? Where are they? Et cetera, et cetera. And so we started a data project underneath the umbrella of something we called For the People, a Leftist Library Project. So that's kind of how For the People started. And our main goal was we want more leftists to include public libraries within our organizing, period. At the level of whether it's getting on those boards, at the level of just organizing in your local community, for example, when the library is on the chopping block again, because the municipality or the city is not funding it to the place that it is. Like in our budget fights, libraries should be part of that. We should be encouraging unionization within libraries, right? And supporting library workers in various kinds of ways. We should be involved because of what Emily said, which is that when you ask people about the library, everybody's like, I love my library. But love is not enough, right? Love is not enough. You can love a lot of things and you still need to be fighting for those particular things. And sometimes you also need to take a critical stance to things you love. And that's the very same thing around libraries too, right? Because no institution is perfect. Every institution is an opportunity for us to engage in perfecting that institution, to get it to a place where we want to reach closer to the horizon we have for that particular institution. And in a democratic kind of, in a democratic system, we are the people who should have ownership over that. We, the people, should have ownership over that, right? And that's like a very important part of socialist decision-making, socialist governance, socialist work, without using that language. People are down for this shit if you talk to them like a normal human being, right? And you just say like, hey, what do you think about this? Wouldn't you want this to happen? Would you want your libraries to have longer hours? Well, that means there have to be more staff. How are we gonna get more staff, right? We need to be able to actually have a budget that supports more staff so that people aren't doing 7 million jobs within the library, right? In your community, do you want social workers in the library? If yes, then you'll have to be making sure that there are resources to support that.
No.
Right? And how are
I
you
don't
going
want
to be
that.
engaged in that? So those are the things that FTP is interested in. Our pitch is simple, which is that public libraries need our help, that libraries are targeted by the right-wing reactionaries and also by some center-left liberals on a regular basis in various institutions and in various governmental areas, that the lefts, not the left as one thing, but the lefts need to strengthen, transform, and expand libraries. And our goals are then to recruit and train leftists who want to be library board candidates. We want to empower people to self-organize and to take action in their local communities. And we want to provide resources for library defenders, people in their local communities, to take up the fight where they are in their specific ways. We want to arm them with facts, information, various ways that they can take that forward and do what they want to do. So lastly, I would just say that we're not just interested in advancing a kind of leftist analysis of public libraries, but we really want leftists to take power. We want leftists to take power. We want leftists to make power, and we want leftists to move affirmatively into governance. That is what we're trying to do. And we're doing it in a very non-501c3, blah, blah, blah. We got no money. We're gonna shut down in 5 years. And our goal is to mobilize people who are not staffed, but to people who are just regular folks to do this work, okay? So there will be no For the People Inc. And our goal is very specific. We have goals in terms of measurements of leftists we want to see within the 5 years, take out those particular roles. And then we want to go home and do other shit that we want to do. And I think that is also okay. That you can have formations that exist for specific purposes over a period of time to do a thing, that maybe it becomes a virtuous cycle because more people start to see that that is possible to do. So we're always looking for folks in your communities to step up. If you want to run, you should go to our website for the people. What is it called? The librariesforthepeople.org. And you can find information. Our next cohort, we did our first cohort, which just ended, and we have our second cohort coming up in early 2025 to help people to either run or seek appointment in their particular library board and keep it moving that way. So that's what I wanted to open with. And yeah, it's an invitation to all of you to join us and to be part of that work. So thank you.
It has been interesting for me to watch because I live in New York City also, which is where a lot of this work is happening, and to see that happening at the same time that I was working on this 501c3 project, right, which is a different kind of project. But I would say that one of the examples I hope I set was that those 501c3s, especially those that cater to professional people like us, like I don't know if others, like the Nurses Association and the whatever association, that those are places where resources sediment, right? So the American Library Association is the largest and oldest library professional organization in the world. It has much more capacity than I have like on my own. And so what part of the experiment was like, well, could we go in, those of us on the left, into these places where resources are sedimented and go and take them for our own, right? Because it not only has money in the shape of grants, but it also has all that infrastructure that's just a pain in the ass, right? Like somebody's got to set up the meeting. There's a Zoom and a Zoom bill that somebody's got to pay. There's like, do we ever get together in person? Like socialism is so great because I see people that I saw here last year, and we get to continue the conversations and sustain ourselves. And so ALA has all of those kinds of pieces in it. And so I'm just like 2 months out of being president, but it's been interesting to see the limits of organizing within existing structures, which I guess is like everybody has their story there. So I'll stop talking about that. But I did, I imagined that what I would come in and talk about was the importance of a densely organized library sector, right? That we need a densely organized library sector, period, right? That if we organize the public sector workers responsible for administering one of the last remaining public goods on the planet, that we'd be closer to the kind of world that I want. What I found was that was an almost total block, actually 100% total block on talking about anything union related, like directed not to wear my union buttons anymore. So I used to have these, like I have all of these union library worker buttons that every time I see a new shop, I like send them a little care package, right? I sent Daniel Boone Regional Library a little care package, but I was told to stop sending those care packages. So, and figuring out how to resist those things is, yeah, okay. I don't want to make it a personal therapy session, but I do, but I won't. I'm going to resist it. But what it ended up being about was book banning and censorship constantly. I had to talk about that constantly. If you have questions about organized censorship in this country, I have answers for you. But I did not think before then, I was like, the emphasis on censorship mistakes what the real problems facing American libraries are. So I've never worked in a library or even been into a library that didn't have a bucket under a leak. Think about your public library. Is there a bucket somewhere? I promise there's a bucket somewhere. Yeah. I've worked in libraries for almost 25 years. I've never seen a cataloger or somebody who worked in the back office in technical services leave that position, either be laid off or quit or retire, and have that position filled by someone else, much less expanded. And so the people who build the infrastructure that we use to organize, to select, acquire. Those of you who went to library school, here's the rehearsal: to select, acquire, describe, circulate and preserve information, like all that takes infrastructure. I've never seen anybody hired to keep rebuilding that infrastructure. So one of my friends who's here, Baharak, was in a session talking about Ex Libris, which is the infrastructure, the company that builds the infrastructure that runs huge numbers of libraries in this country and in Canada and all over the world, and just their market share continues to grow and grow and grow. So guess what? Ex Libris, an Israeli company, right? Like, so we're funding, and it's like it's
we can agree on
we
that.
outsource the infrastructure to these private corporations.
Shouldn't
And
be
even
doing
if it
that.
wasn't Israeli, that'd be a problem. But like the fact that it is located in occupied territories is like part of the problem, right? But we don't have the library workers necessary to unpack that, right? To both see that it's happening and then do the work to build something new or something different. So as I'm going across the country and everybody's like censorship, the problems of lack of investment, the problems of just the like ignoring the infrastructure building work that libraries do, the problems that I'd always experienced in the library, which is getting paid almost no money to be the space of last resort. You know, like where can you go when you need to go somewhere? You can go to the ER, or you can go to the library. Like, is there really anything else that's indoors?
Yeah. What, that you don't have to pay for?
That you don't have to pay for? Like, kind of jail. Yep.
Well, now you have to pay for jail.
Oh, yeah.
Now you have to pay for your stay at prison, at jails. So, like, there's no place in the U.S. anymore where you can go spend the entire day there and not spend a dime.
One place.
One place left.
One.
And I just think if you think about that, you think of how precious it is to make sure that this resource remains public. Because we've seen over the last 70 years what the right has done to public education. And I promise you, they're not done on the public education front, but they are now focused on public libraries. And so if you think that we're going to be here in another 20 years talking in the same way about public libraries without us taking an active role in fighting to preserve what we want, strengthen what we have, expand what we need, you're living in some la-la land fantasy. And I promise you, I won't be at this conference in 20 years talking about shit, but I will be on video watching it and yelling at the screen that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Do you know what I mean? Let's be real. You know this is true. You know I'm not lying.
Rahway, New Jersey, Rahway Public Library, a blue state that's going to go blue, that has an anti-book banning piece of state legislation, just gutted the hours of the Rahway Public Library. I think they're open like 4 hours every, 3 days a week. So it's, to me, in my mind, a bigger problem than book ban.
Absolutely. Do you want to, what we were supposed to talk about, we have questions that we wrote to ourselves, but we also obviously want to hear what you have to say. But one of the questions was, why have we chosen libraries as the site of our organizing work? And you kind of began to talk about that, but do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, just because I work in them.
Yeah.
So it's really more my question for you is like, because you do so much organizing work, why the library? Which you said a little about, but I'd like to know.
Yeah, why the library? For me, I think public libraries are sites of struggle. They're important sites of struggle that exist. And as I've been seeing, part of what I've been concerned about over time in doing abolitionist organizing is that we have to ask people to imagine a lot of things they can't possibly imagine, because of the fact that oppression puts a ceiling on your imagination. You're just like, I can't get out of this world that I'm in right this minute to think of anything else, right? And if we were to tell you now, today, that you could go into a building that's a public space, you could access DVDs, audiobooks, any number of things for free. You could use the Wi-Fi in the computer in there.
Thanks,
you
Dan.
could use the restroom. You could get tools or a wedding dress that you could get from the Library of Things. You could attend public programming for free where people are coming to talk about ideas. If we were to offer you that as a thing in 2024, I don't think most people would support it. I think people would think it was a heresy because we wouldn't have been able to imagine it if you put 2024 lens on yourself. I think about this all the time. When I used to, I haven't been in the classroom in about 9 years. I'm going back next year to teach a class, and I don't know what it's going to look like. But one of the things I remember so clearly was telling one of my students that we came close in this country to free higher education. That open admissions existed. CUNY was free. My students could not friggin' believe it. It was impossible. What do you mean? Who was paying for it? What was going, the way that capitalism has completely colonized every aspect of ourselves, including our imaginations, is a sad state of affairs.
Wait. I need to listen to that again. The way that that capitalism has colonized every aspect of ourselves, including our imagination. Now, this is when I talked about this on stream the other day, which is that most of the time when the left uses the term colonization, they're not they're talking explicitly about land. Because colonization, colonialism, imperialism, they're all basically words that mean the evil imperialists, the evil capitalists, the evil bourgeois come in and they steal the land from indigenous workers and they privatize it. And not even indigenous workers, the indigenous people. Previously, the indigenous people had collective ownership of the land where no one owned the land, but everyone could use the land. And then the evil capitalists came in and they colonized it and they made it privatized and they enslaved the people of the land and all these things. Typically, when you hear colonization, it has to do with land. Sometimes, though, it has to do with colonizing an idea, colonizing a framework, which means to impose a capitalist sensibility onto that idea, onto the framework. They often use it in terms of the curriculum in a classroom where they say the curriculum has been colonized and they want to decolonize the curriculum, which is remove the oppressive force of capitalism from it. But let's just listen again.
That we came close in this country to free higher education. That open admissions existed. CUNY was free. My students could not friggin' believe it. It was impossible. What do you mean? Who was paying for it? What was going, the way that capitalism has completely colonized every aspect of ourselves, including our imaginations, is a sad state of affairs.
The way that capitalism has colonized every aspect of ourselves, including our imaginations, that means that what they're saying is people literally can't think in a world without privatization. People literally can't conceive of this world without private property ownership, which is what the definition of capitalism is.
So you don't have to imagine the library, the public library, it exists now. So that means that's why you fight for it. Because you don't have to sit down and think about all this shit. It's here now. And it won't be much longer if we are not steadfast in insisting that it remain a public good. A public good. Emily said, I love the way she describes libraries because she talks about public goods shared in common and distributed to everyone. Public good.
Well, Joe says for CUNY, didn't you have to be accepted based on grades? Listen, I worked, my first job out of college was actually, I was a college admissions counselor. And so I was actually one of those people when I was 25 years old that I was reviewing college applications and I was reviewing people's grades and reading their dumb essays and all that stuff and deciding who gets into college. Let me tell you what most people don't understand about college admissions. At the vast majority of colleges, you can get accepted without even knowing how to read or write. You don't have to have good grades. There are, of course, elite colleges. Of course, you have the Ivy Leagues. You have to have really good grades, really good SAT scores, all that stuff to get into the Ivy Leagues. There is a tier down from the Ivies where you still have to have some game. I went to Boston University. I like to think that I had some game. Maybe I didn't apply to any Ivies for my undergrad. I did actually get into an Ivy League school for graduate school. I got into Dartmouth, but there's a level down where you actually have to have some game to get in. But there are 4,000 colleges all over the country. CUNY is the City University of New York. It is a public school system. They also have SUNY in New York, which is the State University of New York. And this is true of almost, though not all, almost every public college. Basically, if you kind of show up and you put your name on it's like on the SATs, where if you show up to the SATs and you get your name right, you get a certain amount of points. That's basically all that's required to get into most colleges. And you'll see colleges say, oh, we have this acceptance rate or whatever. Well, let me tell you what, the vast majority of rejections that happen at most colleges aren't because the student had crappy grades. They're because the student didn't complete the application. It's like the student filled out the application, they applied, maybe they didn't send their transcripts, maybe they didn't send their SAT scores, they never sent in their essay. At some point in the process, that becomes what's called an administrative rejection, which means they weren't actually evaluated, but they were rejected, but they never finished their application. So that's the reality with most schools. It wouldn't surprise me if CUNY was that way, where there's really not, like, we're not talking about a high standard of excellence here.
Shared in common, distributed to everyone. Now, are some libraries not letting people in who don't have?
No. It was never different. No, that's not correct. It was never different. This has been how higher education is forever. It has not changed.
Hygiene, yes, but many libraries let everybody in. Do you have to not be high to be in the library? In some places, people enforce that, but in many places, people are high and in the library.
Oh, good.
People are houseless and in the library. During climate catastrophes that are occurring left, right, and center, when there's intense heat, people are using those libraries as infrastructure for cooling. In the winter, in particular places where people don't have heat, they're going to the library to be heated during the day. I mean, that's why it's a site for struggle for us as leftists, my God.
Even Ron DeSantis, when the hurricane hit Fort Myers, Florida, the emergency goods with the emergency response team was located in the Fort Myers Public Library. Guy who's built his entire career on sort of like his whole political future, which I think it's telling that it's not great, right? Was built on like banning books and banning the library. Even for him, it's the place.
I mean, it's absolutely the case, and I think for us on the left, we don't want a commodified public library. And so that means we have to fight. We have to refuse the forced conversion of life forms into market relations. We must refuse that. And the library lets us be part of refusing that. You see what I'm saying? And so to me, it's a necessity. It's a necessity for any socialist building of anything right now for the public library to remain public. And that to me,
it's a socialist necessity for the library to remain public. If I've never heard a better argument for privatizing libraries, I just don't know what a better argument they would have.
So that means we have to fight. We have to refuse the forced conversion of life forms into market relations. We must refuse that. And the library lets us be part of refusing that. You see what I'm saying? And so to me, it's a necessity. It's a necessity for any socialist building of anything right now for the public library to remain public. And that to me, if we lose this, y'all, I'm saying it again, if we lose this, I don't know how close we're going to be able to get to the things we want to have more of. So we don't need to just preserve what we have. We need to expand the library. Why else? To me, another aspect of libraries and relation to carcerality in the carceral state is that, to me, any opportunity of closing the library is a form of public capture of the commons. What do I mean by that? Since the library is the place where anybody can show up and it's public space, that takes up room in our communities and neighborhoods. Our third spaces are there. Now, every time they shut the library down for a certain amount of hours, that's less public space for the community. Every library that's closed is less public space for the community. Shrinking the commons in closing it and making it less accessible to the people, which is why parks in our communities are so important, public parks, because what we want is an expansion of the commons, not a shrinking of the commons. And these spaces are the commons that we have for commoning only makes sense in this age if you think of public libraries. Where else are we commoning? Where else? Somebody give me an example. You can't find it. You're gonna rack your brains. Everything costs money. Every single thing. Like, to me, that's why, for me, the library is so incredibly important.
Remember, in the socialist utopia, they want to eliminate all money. So people often, like, that are new to socialism will come in and ask, like, oh, how are they going to pay for this? Like, who's going to pay for this? Well, it's actually real simple. Socialists want to eliminate all money. They want to eliminate all banks. They want to eliminate all money. In the future Marxist utopia, it is not going to resemble what it currently is today. And so that's why they're talking about decommodification. Decommodification for them basically means you don't have to pay money for something, because money translates into privatized personal wealth that is private to you as the individual, and they don't want that. They don't want people to have individual wealth. And so the easiest way for people not to have individual wealth and to have to rely on the collective for literally everything is to get rid of money.
But on a material level, not because I feel affection for it. I do feel affection for that institution too, but it also can make me sad when I see humans, because that's who is in, doing bullshit things within the institution. So I have a material interest in making sure that we have that commons. And that commons has to be democratically controlled. The commons is no commons if it's not we who own it. And so that's why governance matters so much on a socialist left. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to folks? Yeah. So that's why, to me, it's important to fight on that level.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with you.
Yeah.
It's so nice to be somewhere where I just really agree with you. It was a long year of being with people I didn't agree with. This is a lot
Do you
more
want to
fun.
talk about the issues library workers are facing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the issues that library workers are facing are many, and the library workers in this room can tell us what those things are.
Speak a little louder.
Oh,
Emily.
sorry. Thank you.
It's a little sound. I don't know why.
It's
Sorry.
okay. Yeah.
Here, this is where that one seems better.
Oh, I feel like a star. Library workers are facing all kinds of challenges and all kinds of pressures from all directions, which is why I think they are organizing in numbers that I think are notable. I think that there are more I don't have any numbers, but there are a whole lot more union libraries than there were when I started working in libraries, and it's really inspiring. But I think the explanation for some of that comes from how difficult the working conditions have become for library workers. In many, many parts of the country, the library was the institution that was not closed during COVID or was pushed back into service soonest. One of the problems with being the last public institution standing is that then you're the one that's the first and last resort for every kind of distribution question. So you've got the post office and you have the library that circulate good, like public things. But the library does like physical things. Because we have technologies for circulating books, you can use those same technologies for circulating COVID tests, for circulating school lunches or summer lunches when the schools are closed, for circulating all kinds of things. So during COVID, the library in many communities became the place. I was talking to a librarian in Charleston, South Carolina, who he and his staff were the only people and do you remember the eviction assistance protection program? What did you have to do to get access to those funds that would keep you in your home? You probably don't even think about it because it was so easy for you. It's easy for a lot of us. You just go to your computer and you get on the computer and submit a form. So the people who make policy in this country believe that everybody has access to a computer, who has access to Wi-Fi, knows how to fill out an online form, has an email address, knows where email is, right? And like those of you who work in libraries, like, does everybody have an email address? Wow, no. Like the disaster that is two-factor authentication for public library workers, right? So like working conditions are poor for all the reasons that working conditions are poor for everybody, but in the library it's things like that just awful. So you work every day in a public library in most of the country trying to resolve the individual experience that is produced by the organized abandonment that Miriam talks about. It's your job. And so in this library in Charleston, they worked one-on-one with people in the community in the arduous process of getting access to those funds if you didn't have a computer, an internet connection, an ability to fill out an online form, an email address, and awareness of what email was and where it lived. And it's both, by turns, a story of real heroics, right? That those library workers and that's just one branch in Charleston, South Carolina, and that's just like in libraries everywhere, like kept people alive.
So listen, I don't mean to sound callous, and I don't mean to sound rude, and I don't mean to sound dismissive, but it is 2025. If you don't know what email is, and you're not I shouldn't say retarded. I don't think we should use retarded to actually identify like people with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome bring the world joy. They are pure beings. We shouldn't shit on them. But like, I can understand someone with Down syndrome not understanding email. I understand that, and they should be taken care of, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about normal people who don't know what email is. Like, at some point, is that our job to fix them? Really? Is that our job to fix them? Because you can get a free email account. You can go go to the library, have them hook you up with a free email account. I'm sure they know how to do that. But like, to make it seem like this is a survival of the fittest situation. If you can't figure out email, then I'm not going to organize my world around the people who can't figure out email, okay?
And why is that the job of people who went to library? You went to library school.
I did not learn life-saving mechanisms.
No, you learned to select, acquire, describe, circulate, and preserve information, you know? And so that's the working condition that I think is the most intense. And, you know, like, everybody, the wages are depressed, and, you know, we just don't have enough staff to do the thing, so all of those things. But I think that, yeah.
See, you can...
Do you want to also share some of the successful
Pause. I don't know why I just clicked off of that, but it did. I have a lot of Amish friends. Listen, but you're even saying your Amish friends know what email is, right? Your Amish friends went through that period where they were teenagers and they were allowed to drive a car and stuff. What is that called? Rumspringa or something like that? Like, they know, they might not use email, but they know what it is. And if they actually legitimately needed it for some emergency purpose, they could probably figure that shit out, because the Amish are smart and the Amish are industrious, if nothing else, right? But I'm talking about, like, people who don't know that email is a thing. That's what I'm talking about.
And I was like,
I just rewinded accidentally.
This.
Where did I leave off, Bob? Can you rewind it and tell me where I just left off? Because I accidentally clicked the thing when I meant to click another thing. Can someone tell me where the timestamp of where I just left off? I think it was like around here. Please. Can you guys help me?
And that commons has to be democratically controlled.
Is it here?
The commons is no commons if it's not we who own it.
We already heard that, I think.
And so that's why governance matters so much on a social
form.
We heard that. Thank you.
It's both, you know?
Appreciate
and
it.
so that's the working condition that I think is the most intense. And, you know, like, everybody, the wages are depressed, and, you know, we just don't have enough staff to do the thing, so all of those things. But I think that, yeah.
do you want to also share some of the successful organizing that you witnessed and saw, broadly speaking, within libraries as you've done your tour around?
Yeah, so I ask this question because like I want to hear about wins. I always like hearing about wins, and there are many wins like on the book banning space. But what I saw that was most inspiring to me was when communities responding to the book ban organized censorship stuff, which is, you know, we have a critique of that, but I will say that it spurs action in communities that might not otherwise be spurred to action. So, for example, in St. Tammany Parish in Louisiana, this is a community that has been thoroughly taken over.
I'm betting this is where they're going to talk about the fact that the book banning stuff actually backfires, because when you get into like banning books and stuff like that and doing all this crazy stuff that Moms for Liberty was pushing, what that does is it creates a backlash among the community, because I know this is not like, you know, something that conservatives want to hear, but book banning is not actually a popular thing, and I don't want to hear it's not book banning, it's getting porn out of schools. Do you like pornography? Are you a groomer? Like, go fuck yourselves. There are a lot of people who don't actually want this censorship thing that conservatives tried to do for like 2 years, and it actually radicalized people who, quite frankly, are not leftists to be like, no, we're not doing that.
By extremist right-wing Christian nationalists, and they have pushed everybody out of the library board, and they're banning all these books. And it's also the site of an organization called Queer North Shore, which is a couple of queers who moved from New Orleans to St. Tammany. Nothing on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain in terms of queer community. So they do what queers do when that happens, or probably what most of us do. We're like, well, let's like have a party, right? We'll have a potluck. You'll bring the lentils. You'll also bring the lentils. You know, there'll be like a queer party, right? So they have the potluck, and they have the a skating party and like date night. And then they saw what was happening to books about the stories of their lives that, just as a reminder, have been effectively censored by American publishing for like ever. And it's really only in the last 20 years where you could read a gay book and not have it be awful. Right, and they saw what was happening, and they were like, well, no way, right? So people whose connections to each other weren't forged in a meeting, were forged over lentil salad, like went to the library and started organizing there and organizing on behalf of the library. And it wasn't just them, it was faith communities, it was like the local healthcare community who saw a tie, right, between what was happening to trans and gender expansive stories and what was happening to trans and gender expansive healthcare, and saw a link, right? And so you saw people beginning to organize around that. Now there are limits, and they were successful. They were successful in the sense that books started to go back on the shelves, which is the danger of defining the problem as book banning, because then you put the book on the shelf and you're like, you're done. But tellingly, you know, and this is like a part of the story I don't love to tell, but I'll tell it because we agree with each other, is that the library staff, interested in not provoking the Christian right, didn't put up a pride display the following year. And guess what that did to the solidaristic connections that had been built with the queer community in the North Shore? Like it wrecked them. So it's like the story of an organizing drive that was hugely successful and pulled together people who wouldn't otherwise maybe see themselves as linked or tied together or sharing the same set of concerns, but all saw the library as a site of organizing. But the library has to be able to withstand the heat, you know? And which is why I think it's helpful to think about like how intense the heat is. Because I spent a lot of time being like really freaked out because like the right was writing stories about me. A lot of time, I mean like a few days, and then I was like, okay, so whatever, they're talking about me. I'm fed and clothed and all, you know. So like, I don't know. There's like another story about how a conversation that I'd like to have at some point about how we do and don't scare each other about the right, and that we need to really make sure that that we have the same, that we understand who the target is. And it's usually not trolls on the internet. It's usually the mayor.
I wanted to just point out...
That's actually... Listen, Emily Drabinski took a lot of shit. And what Emily Drabinski learned from taking a lot of shit from people like me. I mean, I'm one of the people that caused Emily Drabinski to have a headache. Okay, I admit it. But what she learned is I'm not actually the thing that matters, which is true in more ways than I want to admit. The mayor is the thing that matters. The library board are the things that matter. And so this is one of those instances where, like, you cannot confuse social media virality with things that actually matter. And I say this as someone who I've gotten over 100 million views going viral on social media, like well over that. Not, and it's like across various mechanisms. I mean, I've gotten absolutely well over 100 million views. Okay. Going viral on the internet rarely changes anything. It's fun and interesting for a minute. You get connected to different people, you get exposed to different things, you see inside how things actually work. But rarely does virality on the internet actually translate into meaningful change in the real world. And people need to be aware of that. Listen, the position that I've made for myself, I view my job as educating people about what's going on, as showing people this information, and then at some point, people have got to take it and run with it, because I can't do both. This is one of the things that I've learned about just, you know, kind of like being a quote-unquote activist. I cannot educate people and also take the lead on changing these things. And I tried to play both for a long time, and it just didn't work. And what I found out about myself, and this may not be true of everyone, but I am much more comfortable in an educator position, doing stuff like teaching people. I'm a teacher at heart. I know how to communicate to people. I know how to write, and doing that sort of thing. I am more comfortable in the educator chair than I am in the activist chair. But there are a lot of people who are comfortable in the activist chair that may not be comfortable in the educator chair. And we need both people, right? My job is to put stuff out on the internet. And so I have to try to like use virality in terms of just getting information in front of people. That is my job. Putting the information out there, making sure it's available, making sure it is in a way that people are going to be able to understand it, and getting it out there into the public. But I can't then go and act on every single thing, because I need to move on to the next story. I need to move on to the next thing, because there's so much information to get through, right? And trying to do everything means that you're not actually going to do anything at all. My point here is this, is that Emily has also figured this out. But she's figured it out from a different perspective. And this means that leftists know this too. And we talk about how there's so much more strategic than the right is. Emily has figured out that it doesn't really matter if people are flaming her on social media. That's not what matters. The virality does not matter, because she's an activist. What matters is her actually going out into organizations, pushing leftist policies in organizations, going in to talk to different elected officials, getting them to do things she wants them to do, actually implementing it. And she understands that that is actually much more important than going viral on Twitter for either good or bad reasons. This is a lesson that the right does not know. This is a lesson that the right has not learned, because there are not enough people that are actually going out there and trying to make change in the real world to defeat the left, because they think that the only thing that matters is getting views on Twitter. And it just doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't in terms of, it does matter in terms of an educational perspective. It does not matter in terms of actually changing the way that, and so if you're someone that follows my content, and you're good at that real world activism stuff, I would and I have had people do this. I've had people who've taken my content and they said, Carlin, I want to go give a speech in my community about this socialism stuff. Do it, man. Do it. Use my videos. I don't care. Please give me credit. If you use my stuff, please give me credit so that people know where to find more. But like, I mean, like, go and do it, or go and use the information that I put out there to write a legislative proposal, or go lobby your town mayor, or go lobby your school board and say, here's the information that we have. We need all kinds of people doing this, but if the only thing that people are ever concerned about is social media virality, then nothing ever changes, and the left continues to win because the left is less concerned about social media virality than they are about actually just going and getting shit done.
Somebody mentioned who I knew through a social had reached out to me to let me know that they took some of the information that we had been sharing, and they fought also in Louisiana at Central City Library. Their library was in a predominantly Black working class community neighborhood that has a lack of affordable housing. It's in the midst of kind of a form of some gentrification happening, but that Central Library is a vibrant public space that remains within that community. People of all ages, all backgrounds, they all use the space, they all use the resources. Again, and as you know, Antoinette said, paid with our tax dollars. So she loves to talk about that. But anyway, so back in the summer of 2023, the HVAC within the library went down. And people were, and it was due to the fact that there had been years of neglect, there had been mold that had never gotten fixed, but now the HVAC was out. And so the community, so then they said, the library system said, we have to close the library. Meanwhile, no other alternatives for people, no like pop-up library offered, nothing. But the community is going to lose this central artery of their community, and they're being told that it's going to happen, and they don't know when the library is going to reopen. And so what they ended up doing was that the temporary closure was extending on and on and on, and family members did not know where they were going to have their kids after school. Like, it really caused social dislocation in this community. And so they, Antoinette and her started contacting her neighbors, because she lived in the community and has lived there for ages. And people were like, what are we going to do? And like looking to her because she's already a community leader. And she was like, we're going to do a people's assembly, because I had mentioned something about the importance of people's assemblies. Anyway, so they did this people's assembly, and they called the neighbors out, and like 300 people showed up to the People's Assembly just on the point of the library. And so they started talking, and they were like, oh, okay, you know, we need to pressure the people in charge to reopen the library, to fix the HVAC, to do all this kind of stuff. So each Saturday for over 30 weeks, these people held liberation circles outside the library that was closed. They brought stuff together, they brought food out. They got people who were in the community who were houseless to be able to come to the location of the closed library to get food. They brought out, because they're in Louisiana and there's all the DEI bullshit going on, so they got all these books donated to them that had multiple representations of many different kinds of people, and they would do liberation story hours where they would have the kids be out there and they would just read to them and do all sorts of stuff. They did political education. They got people to understand what the library board was, who the members were. They did like funding people's budget stuff, all sorts over that period of time. And they ended up reopening the library, fixing the HVAC, and they had a huge celebration. This was just this year, in April of 2024, a reopened library and a promise to actually modernize the library beyond the HVAC. Yeah, that's definitely worth applauding, and it's worth applauding because it's just regular folks. Just regular people, not people. Antoinette is like a community leader, but not like in any way, like did not go to Organizing 101 school. She's an older Black woman. You know, we just knew each other on Twitter. She's contacting me. What do you think about this? I'm like, great idea. You know what I mean? Like, great idea. You have great ideas. Just do it, right? And I just think that that is the spirit that can be brought on every local level. Well, now they're not going away. You know, they've decided that now that they know the board, they're like, we're going to get our people on the board. That's the next step for them. You know? They're like, why is this happening? How come we didn't know this shit was going on with the HVAC, right? Like, so this is how people are going to be moved, is when they know it's in their direct material interest to stand up for something they know is a public good that they need and want. and desire for their families and themselves. So I think that these are the kinds of stories that are happening probably everywhere in some kind of permutation. We're about to kick off in New York City. We have the worst fucking people in terms of leadership. We have Eric Adams. I mean, you all know. Even the fact that you know his name and can do that is so sad to me. What a depressing fact. Anyway, so this man is horrible, and let's hope he's only going to be a one-term mayor. Let's hope. But anyway, so we're about to go after him because he loves to cut the library and then say he's giving the money back. But in fact, what ends up happening is the library numbers are going down and down and down because he gives back the amount, but there needs to be more because of inflation. It's bullshit. And he plays the library off of other institutions within the budget. And so everybody fights for the library, and then they cut the school pre-K. And we are not putting up with that anymore. You know, we are going to push early and often to increase the amount of money for the library, demand that, so that we're not always on our back foot in a reactionary way fighting every single budget cycle on these points. We don't want to do that. We want to be proactive. So a group of us, Emily came to one of our meetings, we just started pulling together folks to be like, no, let us not be reactive. Let us be proactive, and let us fight on a front foot, and let's demand the library we want. What's the dream? Let's fight towards that. Let's stop constantly being like, we're putting our fingers in the dike and they gave us back the 10 cents that we really needed 25 cents, and these jackasses are awful. So anyway, so we're going to be fighting in New York, and I think we should be fighting everywhere. Philly, one of the zines I brought, Eric Ruin and a bunch of them did this zine that showed how folks in Philly were able to stop the closure of several libraries a few years ago through a community-based process where they kept their libraries open. This is happening in all these other places. You can do that too, where you are. Find out, what's the budget for your library? How much are they spending on the cops? Why can't that money be going to the library instead of the goddamn cops? Oh. Right? Make the connections. Make the connections. And like that's the fights, those are the fights we ought to be having, and they should be happening all the time because we need them to be happening all the time. So I think I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to let Emily speak, and then we're going to take questions and comments. So thanks.
I'm just going to add one number to that in New York City, the same week that they opened a $125 million renovation of it's now the Stephen Schwarzman building. It used to be Mid-Manhattan Library, but now it belongs, I guess, it's, what's his name? Stavros Niarchos Foundation. The same week that they opened that, the mayor signed design and build contracts on $8.3 billion of new jail construction in the city. So those numbers, they're stark enough and they're easy to fight about. They're very clear. We just need more library.
All right. Well, that is the end of the presentation. Now, the sad part about these recorded presentations from the Socialism Conference is we don't get Q&A because they edit it out because they want to hide things from us. But we still do get to listen to the presentation, and that's better than nothing. Listen, there are definitely more sessions from the Socialism Conference that I want to listen to. Let's just go through the list. We're not going to do it today, but I just want to show you guys. Let's look at some of the sessions they recorded from the Socialism 2024 conference. Obviously, they've got the Palestine stuff. Let's see. We listened to that. We listened to that one already. Settler colonialism and introduction. I definitely want to do that. Unbuilt walls, borders, prisons, and abolition. That could be good. Let's see. Treatment, not trauma. Organizing for public care and late capitalism. I definitely want to do this. Liberating abortion, claiming our history, sharing our stories, building a reproductive future. I definitely want to do that. Not in our names, organizing against supremacy and towards solidarity. I definitely want to do that. Marxism, domination, freedom, towards a politics of social emancipation. I definitely want to do that. Mastering the universe, who is the ruling class and how do we take their money? That sounds good. Eco-socialism, what's the next for the Green New Deal? That sounds good. So many good ones that we can listen to. Oh, look, Jewish-Muslim solidarity. Isn't that interesting? Because I was assured by a Zionist today on Twitter that intifada meant that people wanted to kill the Jews. And when I responded saying, no, intifada means worldwide socialist revolution, she said, you're a communist. And she blocked me. This is the state of conservative Zionism right there. They just Photoshop shit. They lie. There was this image that went viral on Twitter today where basically that Zionist bitch photoshopped an image to say, look, the socialists are meeting because they want to kill all the Jews. And then it went viral on Twitter. And then I found the actual image and I responded to it. I said, no, this isn't what you're saying it is. She said, you're a leftist. And it's like, you know what? They always lie. They always lie. It's not because they're Jewish. I don't hate them because they're Jewish. I hate them because they're fucking liars. The role of the role of law and left movement strategy, that could be interesting. I don't want to do anything about Palestine. I'm so Palestined out. Ending sacrifice zones, fighting racism and imperialism and climate justice, that could be interesting. Solidarity without exception, the left and the struggle for... There's so many I want to listen to. I definitely want to listen to this Christian Zionism thing. That'll be funny. But do you guys notice there really aren't that many sessions at the Socialism Conference about fighting the right? There are a couple here and there where they make fun of them, but... Well, yeah, I literally have a shirt that says socialists always lie, but that doesn't actually abdicate responsibility of other people to tell the truth. Let's see, 175 years since the Communist Manifesto, why Marxism still matters. Organizing against U.S. empire and America exceptionalism. Wow. A potent Christian Oh, look, I was told that all socialists were atheists, and yet there's a presentation at the Socialism Conference called A Potent Christian Left. Huh. Demilitarization and climate justice. They're complaining about the ADL. Let's see. Oh, we should definitely listen to this. Capitalism's new attacks on public education. Religion at the encampments. Again, I thought that they were all atheists, and here they have a whole presentation at the Socialism Conference about religion. Huh. We listened to that one already. A socialist politics of alcohol. That sounds interesting. What must be done defeating Project 2025 and the neo-fascists? Right, that's going to be entertaining AF. Let's see. See, look at what is gay communism? I'm sorry. Yes, please. Can we have that? Dismantling imperial feminism? Yeah, I think we're going to do that. Carceral family separation? Abortion rights beyond the ballot box? Aging is socialist, building organizations across phases of life. They think of everything. This is all from Socialism 2024. This is all from Fanon to Falstein, decolonial theorist in practice. Another one on settler colonialism. Movement journalism and the fall of legacy media. Even the socialists were talking about legacy media. The black anti-fascist tradition. And that's it for Socialism 2024. And they actually also have all the sessions from Socialism 2023. I think they even have Socialism 2022 on here if we keep going down. So we've got a lot of shit to listen to, guys. And yeah, like I think I foresee a Socialism Saturday double or triple feature. I mean, I'm thinking for tomorrow and Saturday at a minimum. We're going to do, I think we're going to do it tomorrow and Saturday. I think this is going to basically be our happy hour. Look at this. We've got all of it. We don't get the questions, but we get the presentations, and sometimes that's okay. There's Socialism 2022. So they just gave us a metric fuck ton of content. And it would be nicer if we had the videos, and I acknowledge that. But so you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. All right? So we're going to be listening to this over the next couple days, unless something else comes up, which it conceivably could. So if something more pressing comes up, we'll listen to something else. But there's just so many sessions on this I want to listen to. And as always, if I have to suffer, You guys have to suffer too. And so that's what we're going to be doing, guys. But we are going to cut the stream short today because I'm getting a cold. It's not even short. It's a 2-hour stream, but I'm getting a cold and I'm already getting stuffed up and I want to go take some Dayquil and I don't feel good and it's not fair. And I didn't even leave my house, so I don't know how I got a cold. Even I said that to Victor. Victor's like, Carlin, when did you leave the house? I'm like, I don't know. And so then I got to blame Victor. I was like, you probably brought the cold back and you didn't get it. You just passed it right to me. So, I know, Trendlin, I still owe you a photo of the Zodiac Wheel. I know. Yep, we will engage in collective suffering on my channel. But anyway, guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, again, head over to my Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. You can check out that list of USAID-funded leftist organizations that I put up earlier today. And I promise you, I am positive that we have barely started to scratch the surface of the leftist organizations that were funded by that. Because we were putting in organizations that we knew of, or we were putting in organizations that there were keywords or things like that. We looked up queer, we looked up liberation, stuff like that. I looked up abortion. That's how I found some of the abortion stuff. We have scratched the surface of the amount of bullshit that our government has been paying for. And so make sure you subscribe on the Substack. I've got a lot of stuff I want to put up on it over the next couple of days. As always, there is more than enough news to cover. And if you want to support me, $8 a month, $80 a year keeps me in business. I'm 100% grassroots funded by you. And I'm about to wrap up. I'm going to go work on editing my book, which is going to be called A Brief History of Racism. We're going to be getting back to the re-education book after this, but I had to work this out of my system. And what A Brief History of Racism is a book about the evolution of the term racism. When was the term coined? Who did it? What were their motives behind it? And how has the term racism evolved over time? So I've actually written a short little book about it. I think it's less than 15,000 words. It's more like a pamphlet more than anything, but it took a lot of research to do, and it was way more complicated than I thought, but it is a fascinating history of that word, and it was actually really enlightening for me to do this project. So I'm wrapping up this project. I'm going to go do some editing on this. If you want to read the draft chapters that I have up, you can head over to redmenacecollective.substack.com. This is separate from my main Substack because it is a premium Substack. This is where I publish drafts of my books that I'm working on before they actually become books. All members will receive a free digital copy of the books that I write out of this project as my thank you to you for supporting the work I'm doing. And it will become a physical book as well that you're going to be able to order off of Amazon and stuff like that. And as a reminder, we do have a new limited edition shirt in the Unwoke Art store. That is the Abolish Public Schools shirt. Shirts, sweatshirts, whatever you want. It's cool. It makes a statement. It looks good, and it is only going to be in the store for a couple weeks. Get it right now for 25% off until Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And now I'm going to go, and I'm going to die because I have a cold. And I'm not equipped for this, and I don't like it. And I don't feel good, and I need someone to take care of me and baby me and make me feel better. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll watch more Socialism. I hope you have a good day. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.